Greetings everyone, welcome back to Blade Bias. Today I spent a week, more like 2 weeks, with the Nabalis Canyon, and here is what I learned. Disclaimer before we begin, Nabalis sent this to me for free for the purpose of me sharing my thoughts, although that was mainly for the unboxing video. The week videos are just like follow-up videos. Anyway, they did not pay me to say anything. All views and opinions expressed in this video are my own. As always, you know, Blade Bias, it's my bias. So, let's get into the week that I spent with the Nabalis Canyon, because this is a very, very interesting and slightly controversial balisong. Starting off, compared to the rest of Nabalis' lineup, which... Holy cow, I just came up with an idea for a new segment. Oh my gosh. Oh, I need a name. Oh, I have a naming session to do later. Oh, okay. You get a live... Oh, cool. The Canyon is very, very performant compared to the rest of Nabalis' lineup. I don't think it's going to knock out anything in the higher price tier just off the bat, like the Marbles or the Hydra or something like that. Certainly not the Wing or the Vault Pro. But the market that it is aimed at, in the Lightning to Vulp line, I think it successfully competes in. And we'll talk about more about that in a little bit. Because the Canyon, while it is very good, and while I do think it deserves all of the praise that it's getting for how good it is for the price, I don't think is perfect, and I don't think is going to be for everybody, which is why I've had such a difficult time recommending it over my previous recommendation for beginners, which is the Vulp. But we'll get into that in this video. If you've been on my Bali document in like the past 2-3 weeks, you may have seen me switching my initial recommendation to beginners back and forth from the Canyon to the Vulp, because there's so much to discuss with this thing and so many ways that it can go. I don't know. So let's talk about the week with the Canyon. First of all, unboxing experience. We already covered this in the last video, but you get this cool little gimmicky box, and it comes with a lot of stuff. It comes with lube, Loctite, extra bushings, washers, pivots. It's an amazing, amazing package for the price. I have heard some people say that they didn't get lube or thread locker or extra hardware, which seems strange to me. I'm pretty sure that's what comes standard in the box, but maybe someone in the comments who's purchased a Canyon for themselves can sound off and give us some more insight on that one. For the one that I received, I think this is an amazing package deal for $50, which is the price of the False Live, $40 for the trainer, which I do want to give credit to Nabalis. They did remove that fake sale price shortly after my video went live. I'm not saying that I caused the change, but I just want to call out the fact that they changed it, and I think that's good. I know a lot of people were like, oh, hey, this is like pretty standard stuff. I don't care if it's standard stuff or not. At the end of the day, I still see it as misleading. I'm still going to call it out, because who else is going to? I don't know. Is it a big deal? Kind of to me, but it might not be to you. Whatever. So the Nabalis Canyon, this thing is about 4.4 ounces, all steel with the false live blade. And I think it flips great in its own bubble. What do I mean by that? The Nabalis Canyon is one of those balisongs where when you flip it, you sit there and you go, oh my gosh, this is so good. Holy cow. This is amazing. This flips amazingly for the price. Wow. And then you pick up something else. Like I usually go back to my Sliff T, which, yes, guys, I understand that the Sliff T is more than, what's the math here? Like 8x the price. I understand that. That's not my point. My point is that this is balanced a little bit more sorry. It's balanced a little more standard. You go back to any other regular balisong and you go, ooh, I feel that difference. It feels strange. Like this feels normal and this feels off somehow. And it happens with any balisong, even something like, gosh, I'm packing up my collection to send it to some friends to try, for them to try it out. Even like the Orion 1.5, which is like, it's still twice the price, but we're still talking about the beginner market here. This flips like really, really standard, and it feels normal. And the Canyon doesn't really get to that, but it's something that you only notice when you A/B compare, which I understand a lot of people aren't going to be doing. So that's why the recommendation has been so difficult, because my other previous default recommendation, the Vulp, which I recommend because of what comes in the box for the price, also kind of has that little bit of weirdness. Like, I do struggle to flip the Vulp sometimes, but I think it provides an overall good enough package to beginners to be worth it. Does this? Yes and no, for those reasons I just mentioned. So why do I think that it is so weird? I think it all comes down to stainless steel. At the end of the day, this is a very normal looking balisong. Like, you could put this next to any other titanium trainer and it probably wouldn't look too out of place. It's about the same size. It's got similar cutouts. And I think the big disconnect that's happening here is that we are used to flipping something like titanium in these dimensions. So when you make this out of steel, there's a lot more weight in those areas where there usually isn't. And it leads to the whole experience of the handle specifically feeling inconsistent. It has multiple hot spots, is kind of how I would describe it. The balance is handle biased. It feels handle biased. It feels normal. Like, the balance is fine. It's the distribution that's off. Because I feel like there's a lot of different hot spots in this balisong, and it carries so much more momentum just throughout the handles than anything else I've ever flipped, leading it to feel a little sluggish and a little heavy, which I know Will mentioned in his first impressions video he did, but I don't think it's that sluggish or heavy. This is like, it's like the same feeling I got with the Madco, which is heavy and sluggish. Not really, but are we at the point where the Madco video is so long ago that people aren't going to know what I'm talking about with that? I know some people will, but when I say, oh, the Madco's heavy and sluggish, are people going to actually think, oh, the Madco's heavy and sluggish? It's a joke. It does feel a little sluggish. Like, it's certainly not the most get up and go out of them, but for an all steel balisong, I think it is perfectly nimble. And does really whatever you want it to do. I can do any trick in my repertoire that I want, even on the bite handle, because there's really no downside to chaplaining on the bite handle, especially if you have small fingers like me. It really does whatever you want, and I think that is really, really good, you know? But then I go and I pick up something else, and I flip it, and I'm like, oh no, this is how a balisong is supposed to feel. This is how a balisong is supposed to carry momentum. This is how a balisong is supposed to weigh, or something like that. Because the Canyon is a standard weight, don't get me wrong, but it also feels heavier than it is because it carries more momentum, and that makes it feel heavier. And it's this whole big thing with the distribution in the Canyon where it's like, you don't realize how much you don't realize like how abnormal it is until you compare it to something more normal. And here's where my problem with that comes in. If you recommend the Canyon to a beginner, they don't have anything to compare against. So they more than likely will never notice that this thing feels a little weird to flip. I think if you just flip this thing in a vacuum, you will have an amazing time. This thing is pretty incredible for the price of $40 to $50. The problem comes when they buy something else. How is that transition period going to go? It's the same thing with the Squiddy. People used to recommend the Squiddy as beginner balisongs back in the day. I even did that. But it wasn't a great idea because the transition from a Squiddy to something like this is huge and probably going to result in you messing up and, getting live bladed for YouTube's sake. So I don't know what that... I can't speak to that because I am so far removed from the beginner mindset of this hobby, given how expansive my collection is and my experience with different balisongs is. I can't really speak to that. So I'm having trouble deciding if this is my new default recommendation for that reason. Does that make sense? I feel like I just went on a huge ramble for like 7 minutes about something that no one really cares about, but I care about deeply because I think you'll notice what I'm feeling if you pick this up, you flip it for 5 minutes, and then you pick something else up and you flip it for 5 minutes. This just feels more uniform, more natural, where this feels a little wonky. And it's fine. It's all steel, and I think they did an amazing job. at balancing steel so that it could be flippable, because all the steel balisongs I've ever tried are terrible. They're awful. But it's just what happens when you're considering replacing something like the Vulp for your default recommendation, which is the Vulp a great recommendation because of its chaplains? That's another conversation. So maybe I just need to find something new to recommend. But the problem is nothing else comes with the hardware and the lube and the Loctite, which is the main reason I recommend the Vulp, even though I don't particularly think the Vulp flips amazingly stock. Anyway, huge ramble over. Holy cow. Can you tell I've been flipping this thing a lot? It's also really windy outside. I hope you guys can't hear that. But let's take a step back. The Canyon is incredible. It flips ridiculously well for an all-steel balisong. It flips ridiculously well for a $50 balisong. It has good tolerances for a $50 balisong. It's on bushings. It seems to be built well. It has a good feel in the hand, good grip. I think the biggest problem that I have with it is the bite indicator, the blade doesn't do anything. This feels like a normal chaplain to me. So I've regularly done things on the bite handle without ever realizing, because I'm just in the zone and I lose track of what handle I'm supposed to be on, but I can't correct it because I didn't notice. But also I've seen a lot of discussion about the handle gap. Pinsless is a whole controversial topic in the balisong community, and one that I would reasonably prefer not to be involved in. I can only speak to the pinsless balisongs that I've had, which is my Kuno and this. I haven't noticed too much of a handle gap degradation, but I have seen people measuring theirs day by day, and it's been going down consistently. I don't know. I think this looks about... I haven't been measuring it because that wasn't something that I was thinking about, because I'm usually fine with pinsless. Oh, and the Squiddy AL. The Squiddy AL is also fine. So you're going to have to go talk to someone else who cares a lot more about pinsless, or who has been actually measuring their handle gap. I have not noticed any issues, but I do realize that that is a huge thing that people are talking about. But for $50, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. Even if it does start slapping, people are probably going to beat the shit out of this anyway, since it's all steel. So I don't think it's a huge deal, to be perfectly honest with you. But if you do, there's another reason to maybe get something more normal, like an Orion or a Vulp or a Marbles or something like that. So overall, I really like this thing. I think it's a great new entry point to the hobby. I think it flips very well, even if it is a little bit unstandard. It's not bad, it's just not... It's just weird in a way that you can really only see when you flip something else, you know? But yeah, does it beat the Vulp? I don't know, because the Vulp feels a little more standard, but the Vulp also has so much more pivot weight that I hate. And the Canyon's heavier and carries more momentum than I would usually like. I think it just comes down to preference. Get the one that you like the look of better. Ever since Will made his video where he said that that's what he tells people to do, I've started taking that into account, because people don't know their preferences. If I tell you this is more handle biased than this, you don't get it as a beginner. So just get the one you like the look of better. I think they provide a similar amount of value, if not the Canyon being a little bit higher in that price, in that point, since I think this can stick with you longer than the Vulp can. Even if it has that little bit of weirdness to it, I think you can really grow with the Canyon where you really can't with the chaplains on the Vulp. So yeah, I think it beats the Lightning. I think this thing has successfully just killed the Lightning. If you're buying a Lightning, please take a look at this thing. And then, I don't know, I think this is definitely better than some of the other cheap stuff on Amazon. Although I don't have experience with that, so, you know. So that's my week with the Canyon. I hope I covered everything. I hope I made sense. Hope I got my points across. If I didn't, I'll just delete the video and upload a new one, because I've actually never done that before, but first time for everything, right? I'm going to go figure out a name for that idea I had at the beginning of the video, and also open this over here. That was the Canyon. Thank you to Nabalis for sending it over. And thank you to you for watching. I'll see you on, I was going to say a day. It's Saturday. It's going to go up. I'll see you on Tuesday. Tuesday? Yeah. Tuesday? Yeah. Tuesday? Man, I need to go get food. What the hell?